Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we're calling our readings to the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We're in the Calamus section, and we turn now to a little poem, What Think You, I Take My Pen in Hand. Again, notice this kind of strange word order or syntax. We've seen this before. This is really a beautiful glimpse of friendship that we're going to see. Whitman has this amazing capacity to kind of give us a photograph in words, as some scholars have called it. That image that will just kind of stay in your mind for a long time, and it's quite a beautiful one. Now, my assumption is that you've been with us at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, everything from inscriptions all the way up and including to the poem that we studied last, I Dreamed a Dream. Now, our Norton's material will tell us that this one, a little bit of background information, the Barrett manuscript of this Calamus number 32 poem shows it to be Roman numeral XI6 in the Roman numeral series. It's remained unchanged since it took its present title in 1867, except for the substitution in 1881 of, quote, but merely, end quote, for but I record, okay, in the beginning of the fifth line. So that's the only real adjustment to this poem. I love this, the way that this poem is going to show us something that's constructed in a really beautiful way. So I want you to pay attention to the organization of this poem at 2b. Let's just read it. What think you I take my pen in hand to record? The battleship, perfect, molded, majestic, that I saw pass the offing today under full sail? The splendors of the past day, or the splendor of the night that envelopes me? Or the vaunted glory and growth of the great cities spread around me? No, but merely of two simple men I saw today on the pier in the midst of the crowd, the parting of dear friends. The one to remain hung on the other's neck and passionately kissed him, while the one to depart tightly pressed the one to remain in his arms. Now notice the construction of this poem. The first is a rhetorical question. What think you I take my pen in hand to record? It's an interesting set of questions that will be resurrected. First, notice the you of this poem, directly spoken to you, the reader. We've seen this many times. Notice as well that the word pen is used. Whitman actually wrote in a journal, I do not do a great deal of writing, he said, with the pen, but rather with the pencil. So it's interesting that it's the pen in hand. He didn't write a lot with pen. And then this idea of recording, think about that poem, Recorder's Ages Hence, as a way to think about this. 6 times in Calamus and beyond we'll get this word record. Then notice you'll have 3 possibilities of things to write about. In other words, he asked the simple question, what do you imagine I'm going to write about today? The first is the battleship. By the way, the only use in all of Leaves of Grass, this word battleship, hyphenated. Perfect, molded, again a hyphenated word with the alighted. Majestic, that I saw pass the offing today under full sail. Notice the technologies of war, in other words, we might say. Well, of course, we cannot help but read a line like this and think about Homer's Iliad, right? For example, the celebration of war. He says, do you think maybe I should write about the majesticness of war? 2, the splendors of the past day, or the splendor of the night that envelopes me. The accomplishments, in other words, possibly of war, possibly of others. By the way, envelopes here is the only use in Leaves of Grass. It's interesting. Or, number 3, the vaunted glory and growth of the great city. We think, of course, of the city of Friends, of I Dreamed a Dream, the poem that we just worked with, right? Spread around me. So notice you have 3 options to write about. One is, of course, the glories of technologies of war. The other, of course, is the great accomplishments that have happened in the past or are happening in just recently. Or the glory and vaunted growth of the great city. If obviously we think about New York City itself, right? And then he says no. And you see how he's kind of constructed this. But and then he tells us what it is that he'll be messing around with. But merely of 2 simple men. Notice it's the word simple. Notice the word merely as well. I told you he loves this idea of the perhaps, the merely, it seems, kind of off the cuff. I saw today on the pier right? This is that glimpse. In the midst of the crowd. So you got all of this action going on, and then Whitman is able to kind of focus his lens down. And I like that language. For those of us who are working to be poets, pay attention to the way that Whitman loves to go from the large to the small, and then he'll be focusing in as he goes. So you got these two guys there on the pier, right, parting, the parting of dear friends. So notice we're back to the use of the word friends. I told you it's a very popular word in Leaves of Grass from I Dreamed in a Dream. The dear friends. The one to remain hung on the other's neck 4 times in Calamus or beyond. We'll use this word hung, right? That is to say this idea of hanging or being close to. Hung on the other's neck and passionately kissed him, while the one to depart tightly pressed the one to remain in his arms. Now we said the Calamus section is emphasizing manly love between males, and here you have this amazing image of that. At 2A, what's our major message here? Well, the greatest thing that an artist can ever celebrate is friendship, and he'll play that game here. At 2B, again, notice the organization. 3 possible things to record: no, but, and then he's going to talk about friendship. At 3A, we'll think about all of the classic tales of friendship that we've studied, all of the important texts on friendship that we've looked at from Aristotle and his rendering of friendship. Think about the great friendship in the biblical text, 2 Samuel 1:26 of David and Jonathan, right? More than the love of woman, in fact, is mentioned there in 2 Samuel 1:26. We think about St. Augustine and his great friendship in Confessions 4. We think about Christ and the Apostle John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, we're told in John 13:23, right? So, I mean, there's so many texts that come to mind. What are the ones for you that come to mind? At 3B, finally, what is your favorite friendship or lover scene of all time that you either watched, right, or that you yourself were engaged in? And to what degree is that something that this poem then brings fresh to your mind? What a compelling image Whitman is at his best when he's playing that game. Thank you.